Hi, everyone. Before I get to the episode, I want to take a moment to address the United States Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade on June 24th, which stripped away the right to have a safe and legal abortion. Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health and independence of all people, which we have already seen with abortion bans and restrictions in countries like Poland and Malta. This decision has dire consequences and could have harsh repercussions for other landmark decisions within the United States. I encourage our audience, American and otherwise, to learn more about what you can do to help at podvoices.help. I encourage you to speak up, take care, and spread the word.
Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your host, Maricella Herrera.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me at the Ellevate podcast. I'm Maricella Herrera, the CEO of Ellevate Network, and your host for this show. I'm joined today again by Megan Oliver, who is not just our social media maven at Ellevate, but also produces our podcast. How are you doing, Megan?
I am doing well. Thanks so much.
You just recently got back from vacation. How'd that go?
Oh, it went so well. So it was roughly about a week and a half, all things told. It's a thing that my family has been doing. My dad's side of the family has been going to Bethany Beach, Delaware for 30 years now. Ever since the year I was born. I'm 29, so I was 0 when we first went. And we all stay in one big beach house, and it is just amazing. It's this little tiny town in Delaware, again, called Bethany Beach. And it was such a refresh and a reset. I had no Slack notifications on. I had no email notifications on. I barely even checked social media because I run our social media. So like our stuff would be popping up. So I'm like, I don't even want to think about it. I don't want to think about work. I just want to chill here. And it was great.
It's very good. I'm very happy that you actually disconnected that well, because it is so important to make time for yourself and to recharge.
It is. And
we take it for
it kind
granted.
of, yeah, it kind of broke my heart because there were so many people there that, like, I don't want to call anybody out because I don't want to call out their workplaces, but so many of my relatives had to work even though they were on vacation. They had to do this one call or they had to do this one thing. And I was like, nah, Ellevate just said, go away for a week. You need it. There was somebody who was pregnant who had to do several days of work because she's saving up for her maternity leave because she needs all of her days that she can ask off for. And I was like, holy cow.
God, what can we do for companies to realize that people are people and we need to recharge?
I don't know. I truly don't know, but I felt so bad.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Well, I've been trying to recharge by watching some rando TV.
I love it. What have you been watching?
So I've been watching this show on Hulu called Pivoting, but there's only one season and it got canceled after that season. But it is so good. It's about 3 friends who are about my age. So they're like 39, 40. And they were a group of 4, but one of them dies. And so the whole show is how the other 3 friends are coping with it. And it's so heartwarming and so funny. And obviously, because they're my age, it gives so many callbacks to when I was growing up. It's just I'm so into it, and so much so that yesterday I literally turned off the TV, being like, I'm going to save the last 3 episodes for tomorrow.
Oh.
Because it's like so just don't think, great characters. Love it. And now I'm very sad that I'm not going to be seeing any more of it.
I haven't seen it, but I know my aunt and uncle referenced it. Speaking of Hulu, but yeah, they referenced it and they said that they were really enjoying it. But have you been watching Only Murders in the Building?
Oh my God, so good.
Oh my God, I love it so much. It is so good. That's not my what are we watching this week. That's just my what everyone should be watching at all times.
I just binged the whole thing this weekend. And here's the thing. I mean, I've said it before, but I'm so basic. I'm such a true crime fan. that is what I'm into most of the time. So, now that I'm training for the marathon, most of the time that I'm running, I am listening to my favorite murder or Last Podcast on the Left or any other true crimey interesting show, particularly best if it's also a little funny. And
Yeah,
yeah,
well, exactly. That's why I was like, she had better be watching this show. This is so up her alley.
yeah, it's great. I love it. And plus the cast is fantastic.
And who could have ever predicted? I mean, Martin Short and Steve Martin have done a million things together, but then thrown together with Selena Gomez, they're all so funny, that trio.
Yeah. Also, it's a great showcase of how the different generations interact and how different generations can actually bring value to each other's lives, not just, older people giving advice to younger people or trying to help them out, but like the other way around too. We have a lot to learn from people who are younger than us.
Totally agreed. My favorite joke in the entire show so far, and this is very early on, so like, and it's not a spoiler for anybody who hasn't watched it. If you have not watched Only Murders in the Building, please watch Only Murders in the Building. Is Martin Short and Steve Martin's characters are wanting to contact Selena Gomez, and they're sitting there going, and I think it's Steve Martin. He says, "Should I call her or should I text her?" And Martin Short says, "They don't like it when we call them for some reason." And he's just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna text her." And I was like, he's right. Millennials do not like to be called on the phone.
It is so funny. It's such a good show. Such a good show. So you said this isn't what you're into. So what is what you're into this week?
So I'm doing basically, okay, first of all, I'm always reading about 17 books at a time. So I'm a big fat liar when I say that these are the two books I'm reading, but like these are the two books I'm focusing on right now. I try to read one fiction and one nonfiction at a time. The nonfiction, coincidentally, based on our Only Murders in the Building true crime talk, I was going to say anyway, would be of interest to you because it is Peter Vronsky, who I've read a bunch of his books about serial killers. It's called American Serial Killers, The Epidemic Years. And it's just all about the 1950 through 2000, when the like all the basically all the famous serial killer things happened, and just going over their
Mhm.
stories and why there was a rise in serial killing in that era. And it's so interesting.
I need to read that. That is literally something I would like.
Oh my god, yeah, I'll send you my copy when I'm done with it. It's so good. And then on the fiction side, I've been reading, it's by Jasper Ford, two F's on the Ford. But he writes the Thursday Next series, which I think there's 7 books, 6 or 7. And it's the third one. It's called The Well of Lost Plots. It's basically, I mean, it's, if I really simplify it, it's about a woman who can travel in and out of books, but that really simplifies it. Basically, if you're a big reader and you like literary jokes about books and about the reading world and about history and about literature in general, you will love these. They are so funny. There's jokes with grammar, there's jokes with plot holes, there's all kinds of jokes. They have a thing where when they're in the books, they call it the footnoter phone, where they communicate with each other via the footnotes in the book because nobody ever reads them anyway. So it's so good. They're so funny. The first one is called The Eyre Affair, Eyre like EYRE, Jane Eyre. So good. Cannot recommend them enough.
That's so cute. I've never heard of these.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of them. I remember I had a calendar ages ago that was like a page a day calendar, and it recommended a book a day, and this was recommended, and I couldn't get it out of my head for years, and I finally picked it up a few years ago, and I was like, "Oh, I love these."
That's so cool. Well, I'll have to check out the books you're saying. Check out Pivoting. Definitely check out Only Murders in the Building.
Yes.
And so we're going to go into Kristy's interview with Marah Lidey. She's the co-founder and co-CEO of Shine, which is an app that centers on Black and Brown voices to support their mental health. It was created to provide traditional self-care support to different communities that have been underserved really in this space so that they can feel connected, accepted, and heard. I am so excited for this conversation. So let's go to it.
Hello, Marah, and welcome to the Ellevate podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Let's kick it off learning a little bit more about you. Could you share a bit about your story and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I this question's always so interesting for me because I have a really easy time answering questions about my professional background. But when it comes to my personal background, I'm kind of like, well, what do you want to know? Where do I start? Yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll start with where I am today and then kind of what brought me here at a high level. But today I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Shine, and we are on a mission to make caring for your mental health easier, more inclusive, and just more representative than it's really ever been. And about how I got here. So I'll start at the beginning. I was born in Savannah, Georgia, to a waitress and a bellboy. My parents, they met through friends and briefly, casually dated, and there I was. I would say, I spent the majority of my adolescence with my mom in a small town in northern Pennsylvania. And I was often the only person of color in, most rooms and often in my whole school. It feels like a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. I think this town just, really hadn't experienced any, I don't know, integration yet. And so I'd say in that time, I went to 6 different elementary schools and middle schools, and often because of driven by racism, a lot of times by teachers. And sometimes also because my mom, couldn't find work and we would just move. But a lot of change, a lot of instability, and that can be tough for a young kid. And I think it has a huge part. I mean, it's everything in terms of what I care about and why I am the way I am today. And that, never really having roots anywhere in those kind of really formative years of childhood. And I think feeling the real pain of racism so young and so frequently, I really struggled to feel a sense of belonging growing up. And so today, that I is again just a huge part of what drives everything I do. I think what changed everything for me personally was reconnecting with my dad. That's a whole other story, but he had, high level, he had searched for me for 10 years. And when I was 13, I, quote unquote, met him again. And I, for the first time in my life, really felt a sense of home. And so later, when I was in my early 20s and just feeling that same lack of belonging, and this time at work, I connected with Naomi, who's my now co founder. And we were in a workplace that had really a wonderful mission, really great team members, but unfortunately, from a leadership perspective, really didn't uplift or often include women of color. And so Naomi became, in a similar way to my dad, that new home for me, that place at work where I could feel safe, where I could feel included and comfortable just being me. And I think for both of us, she had a similar, definitely a different journey, but a lot of similar threads in terms of that feeling of a lack of belonging. And we both knew we had an opportunity to help less people feel alone in what they go through. And that's what ultimately led us to start Shine and provide inclusive daily mental and emotional health support for everybody.
Was it? I'm trying to think how the best way to phrase this question, and I guess I will just do my best. So I was on the founding team of a company in the health and wellness space, and we focused on massage, in-home massage on demand. It's called Zeal, and we weren't therapists ourselves, and on the founding team we didn't, none of us had that experience of the the expert, the massage therapist. We all had the experience of the consumer, and who really valued that as a health and wellness practice. And along the way, it was important for us that we really understood, all sides of that spectrum, and the industry at large, and really become, de facto experts. And so for you, mental health is so critically important. You had your own experiences with it throughout your life. But how did you approach this in a way that really felt inclusive of all those different perspectives within the spectrum and that whole ecosystem and that you're building?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is something that we say often, which is to be inclusive, you have to be specific. And that means telling really specific stories of people's experiences, not, overly generalizing, which I think for since the beginning of time, this modern, I would say since modern day corporate America began, we've been really good at generalizing the idea of even just the word diversity, right? And so for us, it was really important to be specific and tell really specific stories of what it's like to be the only, woman of color who's wearing a hijab in the office. And what does that feel like? And what has, we have a term we coined called representation burnout, which is the idea of the feelings of burnout and stress and overwhelm, that come from representing and feeling accountable for representing everyone like you, right? Whether you're the only woman in a room or the only person of color, the only queer person, there's a real burnout that can come from that. And so that's just an example of the specificity that matters. I think that's important. And I think the other thing that is really core to just the very early inception of when we started Shine. So really just wanted to see a different default. We didn't set out to build something that was for us, by us. Shine isn't something that is only for a specific group of people. It's for everyone. We wanted to, we really thought about equity and what it looks like to make up for some of the inequities we've seen, right? Like the lack of representation in therapy, or just like the people who have the training to be therapists and the lack of representation there, and who has the highest needs and who's getting the least amount of care. All of that came into mind. But I would say, like, just at a really basic level, we just wanted to see, what is it like to just have a different default face or voice as the face and voice of our consumer experience. So just a quick example and a story there. When we started Shine, it was a daily text message you can get. Now it's a mobile app available in the App Store and Google Play. But at the beginning, it was really just this text that was a mental health check-in. You would get it once a day. And it sounds so simple, but we got just the most amazing feedback about how it was changing people's everyday experiences. And all that said, we put up this Squarespace site because we were just getting started. We still had a full-time job. And the Squarespace site, we used a stock photo of a Black woman with curly hair. I really, honestly, when I chose that photo, wasn't thinking about anything other than just choosing a photo, that represented my experience or people that I knew. It wasn't an overthought thing. But we almost immediately, we sent people that weren't already using the product, hey, you can sign up here, share with your friends. Got people asking us like, oh, is this only for Black women? And there was, nothing, absolutely nothing in the content or on the site that would suggest.
Like blown
Yeah,
away
there's
by that
nothing that.
question. Sorry, not to interrupt you, but like, I mean, there's so
Yeah,
much to
absolutely. I
unpack there,
think
but please
the
go
first
on.
thing that came to mind is like, does anybody email Reid Hoffman and ask him if LinkedIn is only for white men? Has that ever happened? Or PayPal or Microsoft? Has anybody emailed Tim Cook and asked if Apple products are only for white men? Never. Like they don't do that. That's not, and that's because that's the assumption in a culture obviously of white supremacy. Like the assumption is that white men are the default. And if you see a woman's face on a product or on a service, then it's for women, unless there's a woman and a man, and then it's for everybody, right? If you see a Black woman or any, person of color, marginalized group that is, for whatever reason, more visibly represented in a photo, it all of a sudden begets this question like, oh, it's not for everyone. And that obviously is so problematic, but it it made the mission so much more clear, when we got started, we are like, what? Why? Like why does changing the default, first of all, make people so uncomfortable? And two, why does that seem otherized already, out of the gate, as opposed to, what if some apps that we use have meditations that are voiced by Black women and that anybody can listen to? What would a world look like with that? So I don't know if that answers your question, but just to illustrate, I think the importance of both like being specific when it comes to inclusivity and also to, almost the inverse to just seeing a different default.
How do you measure success? I mean, from a business standpoint, of course, you could say it's, downloads or revenues, other KPIs, but at the core of why you created this, what does success look like for you? When will you be like, like we've done this, and maybe you already have. I don't want to undermine that, but but how do you measure it?
I think it's a really good question because it also gets to entrepreneurship and, when are you enough and when have you done enough? And it's something we have as an entrepreneur, you get into this, I don't know, space of creating something because you have a vision and you have this passion for a different world and the world looking a different way. And I think most times that vision isn't ever fully achievable or it wouldn't be a vision. I think a mission is the directive, is this is exactly what we do to chip away at that vision, but it might not happen in my lifetime, right? The world will change and I will be a part of that. My team will be a part of that. But will I see all of the equity and representation and inclusion I want to see in my lifetime? Probably not. And so I think to your question, we've had to really, and when I say we, I mean it's particularly my co-founder Naomi and I, just notice and appreciate every single person. Our team, certainly ourselves, but our community. Like for me, success is one person whose life is changed because they feel seen and they have the support to get through one of the most difficult times in their lives. And I'll tell you that's happened since day one. And it's sometimes overwhelming, to think of that at a scale of millions of people. But people email us, they call, we do, of course, user interviews, but they also call us. We have like 7 different Slack channels that just pull in, reviews and customer service tickets, and a channel we call Shine Love. And we see real time feedback all the time. And it's constant. It's the constant, I experienced a miscarriage and none of my friends knew what to say and they didn't reach out to me. And Shine helped me get through it. Shine was the only one that was reaching out to me every day. Or the loss of family members, weight loss. Like, I think one of the biggest things that we hear is Shine is most helpful in catalytic moments. I think any mental health tool, is that way, in that when you think about a friend, the friends that you are closest to, oftentimes the people in our lives that we just trust the most and love the most and are closest to, they got us through something really difficult. They're the friend that was there when we didn't have anyone or when we didn't think it could get any lower. And that friend's the one we keep going back to. And so it's great to have like a light self-care product and a light self-care routine. But I think if you can be that product that changes people's lives because you're with them through one of their most difficult moments, one, that's incredible. And that's all I want, is to do that for more people. And two, it's they'll stay with you forever, because you were there.
There's, from my own experience, leading a business and a community during the past few years has been particularly, rewarding and trying. And it's certainly had an impact on me and my view of leadership and myself. And how has that been for you, leading a business, and particularly you're starting a business, you are in an industry, I mean, you're in a professional space where, there's lack of representation, there's lack of support. You're seeing just so many different challenges that you're facing, but, how has that experience been for you the past few years?
Oh, that's such a big question. I would say there were so many times over these past 2 years now where I thought, how are we going to get through this? We being myself and my family, and certainly my team, and just the wider world, um, the pandemic, the murder of Black person after Black person, the violence against Asian Americans, a war across the globe where civilian women and children are becoming the biggest casualties. I could go on, and I know, your listeners know all of these things because we're being bombarded with it every day. And, I've asked myself a lot, like, how do I lead through this? How do I cope through this? And 2 things really, I think, came to light for me throughout this experience. The first is that most leaders are stuck on the same question. And we felt that firsthand at Shine in June of 2020. So, in March of 2020, we had the same growth influx that every mental health company had. People were struggling at an absolutely unreal level and just seeking support in any way that they could get it. But in June of 2020, we had double that growth spike that we saw in June. And that was because, on the day-to-day kind of consumer side, people were finding Shine and saying, I didn't know there was something out there that was authentic, that represented my experience, that has a founding team that is inclusive and representative, and, just looking for something to support themselves through this extremely difficult time. But then also companies started reaching out to us. When we started Shine, we always wanted to start with the consumer. It was so important to us to be something that was owned by the people and bottom up and didn't feel, we wanted mental health to feel like something that could be light and daily and preventative. But when we really thought about that big picture vision, we absolutely wanted to also work top down from systems, right? And we think about Shine at Work and Shine for School and working with the government and having Shine be subsidized through health plans. Like, our goal is getting the access to what we believe is the most inclusive mental health product on the market to everyone. But I wouldn't say we were planning to do that in 2020. So I think what happened for us in June of 2020 is that accelerated our launch of Shine at Work. We had hundreds of companies that inbounded us that said, we don't have anything. We don't have a solution for our employees of color who are struggling with their mental health. We realize we have maybe a mental health app. It might be a meditation app or a therapy app, and it really just doesn't have the representation we need to support our whole team. And it's unfortunate, that of course, companies didn't necessarily realize that sooner, but it also was really great in that, I'm grateful that Shine had done the work and put in the work of 5 years as a company and a product and a brand who had built trust and loyalty and truly something that has changed people's lives, that they could funnel those resources to get their employees support. And so that fundamentally shifted us as a company, and that is really the future of Shine, is really scaling through systems and getting people the care that they need in a way that is subsidized and covered and just easy for them to get that access. And then I think the other thing I realized on a more personal level is that, we as leaders, like, maybe speaking for myself, I cannot lead only externally. I can't wake up in the morning and, whether it's wake up to the pressures of the job, the day to day, or something terrible happening in the news that, could impact my family or myself, and just think about, okay, what's the message? What's the message to the team? How do I think about the team? How do I think about supporting people? And to be clear, I did that. I used to do that a lot. I would say, like, how do I support my team through, insert tragedy here? But then I realized that I was giving of myself before I could even catch up with my own feelings. There's a great quote around speaking from scars, not wounds. And look, as leaders, we don't always have the time to do that. We don't have months to process and heal through something and then say, okay, let me lead now. But we do have moments. And I think it's so important, and something that has absolutely made me so much better and changed me as a leader is just taking a moment for myself, as opposed to what does the team need right now? I need to start with, like, what do I need right now? How am I feeling? How can I support myself right now? And then I could take that to my family, and then I could take that to my team. And it doesn't, again, mean that I delay, 2 days or even 4 hours, for really important responsive communication around supporting my team. But it does mean that I'm giving them a better version of myself that's had a little bit of time to catch up with and prioritize myself. So it might sound obvious, but I think starting there just allows me to lead more authentically.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing advice. And yeah, it might sound obvious, but so many of us didn't do that, and it was just being so reactive and go, 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 go. And, everyone is looking to you for the answers or needs something from you. And it becomes very easy to put all of these things before yourself. And if you if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't be as, whatever, insert whatever adjective, good or impactful or whatever, for your team and for the others in your life.
That's right. And I think if you have I had a coach tell me once I have a high tolerance for pain, which I was like, oh, what does that mean? And, if you've been through a lot in your life, or if you've been, just women in general, like, I don't mean for anybody that's like taken on a lot, if you have a high tolerance for pain, you really showed up in the pandemic. You were one of those people that people came to. You were the one they texted for advice, that they, cried to, that they relied on. And, some of us take pride in that, and that's wonderful. But I think about that a lot, the high tolerance for pain, and it's not always a good thing. It's not always a good thing to take that on for everybody. And it's not always a good thing to take it on first before protecting yourself, and at least at minimum giving yourself a moment to, process.
Yeah, it's such phenomenal advice. I want to talk to you about some, obviously at Ellevate, we're big proponents of, community and how communities support each other, particularly, entrepreneurs and founders. But I know you tapped into some great support systems. You were part of the Apple Entrepreneur Camp and had a lot of opportunities and assistance as part of that. And I think it's important to talk about, because so many of our listeners might be entrepreneurs or considering being an entrepreneur, considering supporting entrepreneurs. And it's part of a bigger ecosystem of how we can not just help others succeed, but particularly be intentional about the diversity of representation and the support that who we're really supporting. So what was that experience like for you with the Apple Entrepreneur Camp, and what are some of the other resources that have really helped you as you've built and scaled your business?
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of when I was, maybe I was in college or maybe high school. I just remember learning about the idea of a network and being really intimidated by it, and thinking like, oh God, how do I get in the network? And then once I'm in the network, I'm in and I belong and I'm cool and I have the resources that I need. And it felt like this like one-time thing I had to do. I had to network so I could get a network. And then it was going to be this thing that I had. But I realized, I think throughout my experience in college and then moving to New York, and ultimately starting Shine and getting to a place where, oh my God, if you would have told me when I was a kid that I would be sitting in a room at Apple, one of the biggest, most prestigious companies in the world, getting to learn firsthand from their developers and designers and senior leaders, I 100% would not have believed you. And absolutely, what got me here, and I think what Apple does so well, is on the on one hand, it's as an individual seeing a network as fluid, and seeing networking not as this intimidating one-time thing, but as this it's just people and the opportunity to connect with people and see people. And I think the more you authentically put yourself out there, I believe that you find more authentic connections and people who genuinely want to help you. Because there's all kinds of people who, I always say everyone has a need. Everyone has a need. We're out here just trying to meet our own needs, and then where we can meet other people's needs. But when you can find those people who, on the flip side, are really genuinely excited about meeting other people's needs from an authentic, altruistic place, that is magical. And that's absolutely what we felt with Apple. We were a couple years in to our company and to, launching our mobile app, and Apple has been great with us from the beginning. We actually had met a couple folks from Apple. We had cold emailed them when we worked at a nonprofit, Naomi and I. And then later, just stayed in touch. And when we decided to make Shine an app, they gave such great feedback and advice. They've just always been available. And I think that's something, again, if you're listening and you're thinking about entrepreneurship, it might feel like some of the things that, we talk about, whether it's like venture capital or, these big companies like Apple, that they might feel inaccessible. But we cold emailed Apple and they responded. And it led to a relationship that's now like 7+ years old, where, we were able to join Entrepreneurship Camp. And I think they continued that theme of providing access in a really altruistic way. We were able to like truly sit down with, I remember we sat down with the person who was like, what was it? Was it Siri? I think it was Siri. He's like, "Oh, you know Siri? Yeah, I made that." I was like, "That's cool." But just the level, just the access from these incredibly talented people, but again, who are just people and people who really want to help, was really mind blowing. And so for us, that experience at Entrepreneur Camp, I think, gave us more confidence in the heights that we could reach as a company, and certainly as an app. We got such great feedback that fundamentally shifted everything about our product. But more than anything, I think showed us just the opportunity and the value of, it doesn't really matter how big the name is, like people want to help you. And if you put it out there and, make your intentions clear and are authentic about the problem you're trying to solve, you'll find those people and get that support.
Well, Marah, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. Do you have a final thought or piece of advice for our listeners?
Yeah, I would just say that, for me, one of the biggest things that I've learned throughout my entire life, and this podcast was fun because I, don't often reflect on my entire life, but it's just to know your power, whether you are currently working in a place where you feel supported, but you might be looking for that next promotion or raise or next step, or you don't feel supported where you work and you're struggling internally, or you're looking to start a company and you're like, why me? Could I even do that? You can, and you have power. You just have to be the one to recognize it. And knowing my power has significantly helped me to, just see myself better and to accomplish the things that I have alongside a really great team.
Perfect. Excellent advice, and thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcome back. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I said it last week, but I'm repeating it. I am a very big fan of Shine. I've been following them since they launched. So I'm so excited that we had Marah on the show. Her and her co-founder are doing lots of great work to support minorities and with their mental health, which is definitely a need. We know that from the last few years, just in general, mental health has declined. So whatever we can do to reach people and support them, and what they're doing is fantastic.
Yeah, I still remember when I got the outreach from her people, suggesting her for it. This was a few months ago because they were saying potentially for Women's History Month, but scheduling details and everything got, it ended up getting pushed back a little, but that was all fine and dandy. Because I said, we'll interview her any month. It does not need to be Women's History Month. She's doing amazing work, period. And I was so stoked to get her on the podcast.
And as you know, we have our weekly roundtables. Come check them out if you want support. Like I said, we have been through a lot in the last few years. We have been through a lot of isolation. So if you want to meet some other people, get a dose of energy from just chatting to other women who are amazing and want to see you succeed, join us at our roundtables every week. The Rising Leaders Roundtable meets on Thursdays at noon Eastern, and they're going to be talking about recharging your energy stores. So extremely important, just like Megan did on her vacation, and as I'm doing with my silly TV watching. Our Entrepreneur Roundtable on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern will actually be an open networking hour. So if you want to just relax, have fun, meet some people, join us please there. And our Women Seeking Confidence coming up next week will be about fun ways to build your confidence. So you can sense a theme here. We're all about the fun. It's the summer and we want you to be recharged for when things get back to the crazy rhythm of the fall.
Definitely.
And we should not forget our segment of firsts of History Makers. We love, love, love celebrating women and people who make history. So we'll get started. 13-year-old Alina Annalie Wicker became the youngest Black person to be accepted to medical school. Wow.
13 years old.
I feel unaccomplished.
I know. I've seen so many articles about her. She's incredible.
That said, though, I feel very, very happy for her. That is exciting, and it's great to hear.
Yeah, she is going to kill it. Sam Kerr will become the first female player to feature on the global cover of EA Sports FIFA video game.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Quinta Brunson became the first Black woman to receive 3 Comedy Emmy nominations.
And okay, first of all, I just want to say I've been a fan of Quinta since she was at BuzzFeed years and years and years ago. So seeing her rise through Abbott Elementary is what she's on right now. And she's the writer, the producer. It's amazing. And I am so happy to see her get all of the accolades that she deserves. So Sian Leah Bylock will become the first woman president of Dartmouth.
So Sian is actually someone that's very interesting. She was a former president of Barnard, and she was one of our speakers at Mobilize Women a while ago. She has a lot of knowledge on psychology. She's great.
Yeah.
Her work is really good.
Yeah, it was actually you posting on Slack about it that tipped me off, and I put her in these because I was like, I want to celebrate that.
Yeah, she's great. S. Allison Murray became the first woman member of the Barrington Countryside Fire Protection District Board of Trustees.
And this very last one is a special one. We usually celebrate women and non-binary individuals in our History Maker segment, but I had to include this one because holy cow, how is this real? Michael E. Langley will become the U.S. Marine Corps' first Black 4-star general in the branch's 246-year history.
Wow.
Yeah. I saw that one and I was like, what? What? And so hats off to you. I cannot believe, but incredible.
Yeah. Well, surprising how some of those glass ceilings.
Surprising how it still surprises us, honestly.
Right. Well, but we're going to keep celebrating. We're going to keep celebrating people who are doing great things, who are doing your firsts. Share with us what you want to celebrate with us. It's always so great to hear. And next week, we're going to be having another interview that Kristy did before she left. This one's with Natalie Kogan. She's a leading expert on emotional fitness. She's an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and keynote speaker on a mission to help millions of people struggle less and thrive more in work and life. Natalie's latest book is The Awesome Human Project: Break Free from Daily Burnout, Struggle Less, and Thrive More in Work and Life. So we'll see you back here next week.
See you then.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes. Give us 5 stars and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at EllevateNTWK, that's Ellevate Network. And become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.